the team does a good job of not saying this is the way it has to get done or this is what you need to do, but more so thinking of what's happening, where can we take things, how should we go about it, working collaboratively, trying to be flexible and finding the right solutions. And I think you don't want someone that's gonna start getting really mad at you when things are going not perfectly. And I think you want someone that's gonna be a problem solver because it's going to be up and down.
What everyone says is true, which is it's all about the people. And do you believe in them? And the pattern that Alex is saying, I think, is one of the strongest patterns that a fund manager could see, or an investor overall. And it's actually an influence to why we're doing a little bit of an unusual thing at Midnight, in that we are stage agnostic. And it's because if you get to know a founder, I don't want to have missed them. I want to be able to right size the checks in the fund to somebody that we just think this person just is not going to lose. They're going to find a way. And I think Steve and Alex fit that bucket.
Hey everybody, I'm Hannah Dittman, Operations and Finance host of the Startup CPG podcast, and today I'm super excited to be joined by Ryan Springer from Midnight and Alex Michaelsen from Leisure Hydration for another Founder and Funder episode. Midnight is a consumer-focused venture firm built to help scale the next generation of iconic consumer brands. Ryan brings a unique operator-investor perspective to the table with deep experience across retail strategy, go-to-market execution, and scaling high-growth CPG brands. He's also co-founded a beverage company himself and knows intimately what the founder journey is actually like. Leisure Hydration is building a modern hydration brand designed to help consumers take a true leisure break, pause the scroll, forget the to-dos, and take a moment to hydrate, refresh, and recharge. Alex co-founded the company with his brother Steve and has grown Leisure into a rapidly scaling beverage brand now carried nationwide at Whole Foods and other retailers. It is so delicious, so do yourself a favor and grab a can while you listen in. In this episode, we dive into the founder-investor relationship and unpack what initially stood out about Leisure to Midnight. We get into their fundraising journey, early-stage scaling in beverage, the investor-founder relationship, retail growth strategy, and what both founders and investors are prioritizing in today's market. We also cover the importance of relationship building and fundraising, thinking through capital needs and timing, and how to approach feedback and strategy along the way to gather critical insights. If you're building in beverage, thinking about fundraising, or trying to better understand how investors evaluate emerging consumer brands, this episode is packed with actionable insights, lessons learned, and wise words of wisdom from two consumer vets. Go grab some Leisure Hydration and give it a try. Enjoy. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Startup CPG podcast. This is Hannah, and today I am thrilled to be here for another Founder and Funder episode with Ryan Springer of Midnight and Alex Michaelsen of Leisure Hydration. Ryan and Alex, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for being here. This is going to be a really fun one. Everyone at Startup CPG are huge leisure fans, so we're super excited to be chatting with you both today. I'd love to kick us off with a brief background from each of you and the context of the path that led you here today.
I'm Alex Michaelsen. I'm a co-founder and CEO of Leisure Hydration. We make modern functional hydration drinks, and you can find us in about 4,000 stores across the country, like Whole Foods, H-E-B, Target, and a lot of others. And we just closed our Series A, so I think it's good timing to talk about the founder-funder relationship.
I'm Ryan. I've actually done one of these before. It was a blast. Hannah, I grew up in CPG, working for my dad. I usually make a bunch of nepotism jokes that I will spare everyone here, and was on the operating side, and then started Midnight with Alex Bodney and Chris Adam in 2021. Same year, also kind of got off the ground and started, really launched in 2023, a small but growing liquor company called High Desert Vodka. And at Midnight, we invest in next generation wellness brands. We love beverage. Majority of our portfolio will be CPG. It was in Fund 1. The same will be true in Fund 2. And we're stage agnostic, and we'll write like $1 to $5 million checks out of the fund, but we'll flex up with SPVs very occasionally into fund investments.
Thanks so much to you both. We've got a powerhouse team here today. And yes, Ryan's a vet. You should check out his episode. He deep dives into all things Midnight and what they've got going on there at their firm and a lot more of the specifics. So check that out if you get a chance. It's a great episode. Alex, I'd love to get an overview of Leisure Hydration and kind of the founding story, the brand mission, and what you guys are all about.
Yeah, absolutely. My brother and I started the company, and 4 years ago to the week, we sold our very first can. It was kind of born up in COVID when I was at UCLA. My brother and I were both athletes in college, and we drank Gatorade, Powerade, and vitamin water our whole life for physical performance on the field, in the weight room, sweating, running, whatever it might be. And when we left sports and moved to our everyday life working at a desk, we were still dehydrated, but we're not getting cramps and having issues performing or maxing out on squat. We're having issues thinking, we're getting headaches, feeling stressed, anxious, and people around us were constantly dehydrated. So that's when we started to look into this and realize all the brands of the past were focused on athletes and formulated for your body. Yet 80% of your brain is made up of water, and 3/4 of Americans, not just athletes, are chronically dehydrated. So all of us need to be more hydrated throughout the day, and it really affects how you feel mentally. So we wanted to create a healthier, better for you option that had functional ingredients for mind and body, and really creating a brand that was less about performance and more about lifestyle and enjoyment. So we're positioned more for all day, every day than at the gym and after the gym, and really have built a brand with a younger, more creative, laid back generation.
And it's such a great product and so true. It's such a big shift leaving the youth world behind and stepping into adult world and sitting at your desk all day, and what that can do for you. I think anything that brings you a little bit of joy and puts a little pep in your step to get through those moments or those transitions and manage the stress is such a win and makes such a positive impact on people's lives, especially when it tastes great like leisure. I'd love to understand your journey from a fundraising perspective as well. What was the capital story of leisure, and what led you to the need to fundraise and your most recent raise?
Yeah, not a typical beverage story. And the need to fundraise, I think, is simple as that beverage is a expensive business to get into. So if you're not prepared to raise money or not interested in raising money, either stay local or don't get into beverage. We initially started with family, friends, angels, anyone that we could meet that would be interested in giving $5 or $10 or $50,000. My brother and I each sold all of our stocks and some of that stuff initially to fund some of the early business. Something that's a little lesser known, but before we had the beverage, we had an NFT project during the wave of NFTs, and that's where the leisure creature mascot comes from. And that sale actually funded our first couple production runs. Now, those NFT holders now get lifetime discounts on the product, but that was a little bit of a startup. We didn't have a ton of money to get this off and going ourselves. But from there, I think the first 18 months, we were raising money on a convertible note, just any little check that we could get along the way to survive. We, for the first almost 2.5 years, stayed away from any CPG investors. I'd like to say now that was intentional. At the time, it was more of the market wasn't very good and we had nothing to show for our business. It ended up being to our benefit because we were kind of in control of our plan and our timeline and our strategy. So we raised a seed round, a second seed round from 23 and in 25, but we ended up meeting midnight, I would say 2 or 3 months into our launch. So this will become a recurring theme of the episode, but we started to meet people and build relationships and kind of portray our vision early on. And that came in to benefit us down the line when we had a lot more data behind the story. Getting into the Series A, though, we got to an inflection point last year where we went national with Whole Foods and started to build up distribution. We tripled our revenue, and we're having discussions coming out of our last round, and we ended up giving Ryan a call and saw a really good opportunity to bring together a really good group of investors, capital, and distribution all at the same time. So that's kind of what led us to today.
I had a guy in the office yesterday who saw the leisures in the fridge, and he's an NFT owner. And I was like, what? I'd never met one, but he had bought an NFT. He starts talking about the NFTs, which, we've been investors, Alex, I think since August of 24. So a little bit. I've never met one. And then one was in the flesh literally yesterday. He was so hyped about it still,
That's awesome.
which made me laugh, but it's like, he's still a big fan of the business, and the NFT is like permanently attached him, I think, to the business. So he was hyped. He didn't know about the leisure connection when he came in the office, and they saw it on the in the fridge and started grabbing a few and telling me stories. So it was a strangely effective, very unusual strategy for the boys.
I love that. What a full circle. It's like when people like are so in love with a brand that they get a tattoo of it. The NFT ownership is like the modern tech era brand tattoo. That's awesome.
I was thinking that same thing. It literally was like a tattoo to me.
Yeah.
Except this guy bought one when the brand meant nothing and had just begun. It's crazy.
Yeah, maybe he should get into investing. He seems he's got some good spidey senses.
Yeah, I don't need another competitor, but yeah, he does have good senses.
Well, congrats to you on the Whole Foods success, on the round getting closed, on all of the traction to date, and navigating a hard, challenging journey in a hard market times, to your point. Not easy to start a brand that's capital intensive around those years, and what a testament to the resilience that you've made it through. Ryan, I'd love to get your perspective on the journey and the relationship from your end of the table. What was the meeting like? What pulled you into being excited about the brand? And how was the relationship early on? And how did it grow through to where it is now?
Meeting Alex and Steve, I would say the first green flag we got was my first call with them was a little bit rare. Some of the best founders don't do this, but a lot of the best founders do this. It was like half pitch, half information gathering session from them. They were smart guys. They were like trying to gather, instead of saying, hey, we'd love your advice on things. On the first call, they were like, should we do X? What do you think about Y? And they didn't feel like they were just going to do whatever I said. They wanted viewpoints that they were going to, talk to more than one person and put them together and make a decision. And it's funny that happened on the first call. And that's been one of my favorite things of getting to know Steve and Alex. Over the years, I was telling the last person committed, Alex, that these guys are students of the game. They know other brands' gross margins in different categories. Certain people love it. And I think Alex and Steve love it. And that continued to another level because you have this desire to constantly be pushing and iterating. So the first call was that we kept in touch for quite a while. My partner, Alex Michaelsen, always loves to tell a story that he judged Leisure in a SKU competition and he put them in second and he gave them a moderate amount of monopoly money and then $3 million in the next 2 years. And for our team, we always thought there was a lot of potential. And then getting to know them, I'm going to take credit for it along with my partner, Chris. There's three of us. Chris and I sort of went to the team and said, hey, we need to do this. The numbers are showing, the guys have been super impressive. The product is incredible. The people we showed to like it, and the team really quickly got behind it. And now I think Alex is one of the most value-add people pushing Leisure. He's a giant believer. But in a fund, not everyone's going to agree off the jump. And Alex was never anti. He just was focused on our things. And for us internally, the things we were excited about, really high, great margins, crazy early with a competitive price point, a product that competes. We have a nicotine pouch and Olipop and Leisure, I would say, are equally just people are addicted to them, nicotine jokes aside. In our office, people that come in, it's the shelf that gets cleaned out the most. Leisure's probably number one. And that helped us get behind because we went a first check in 24 leading this new round. It's just been a really fun experience getting to know Alex and Steve. And a huge piece of this has been just believing in the two of them as human beings who are coachable and learning and growing and smart. And it's crazy to watch how far they've come since our first conversation.
So awesome. And I can tell you have a lot of respect for one another. I often wonder with these episodes if this is like a happy version of couples therapy where you get to hear all the nice things that you wouldn't normally get to hear from the other party.
You got to do one of these with an investor and investee that have been together for like 6 years. I think that could even be more fun than 2.
Well, Ryan, coming in on the early side, you've had the benefit of being able to kind of watch the company grow intimately and the journey behind the scenes up into its most recent round. What were some of the big milestones that you both were kind of thinking about and working towards in 24? And how has that evolved now to the way that you're thinking about the business moving forward post 2026?
In 24, they had a really unusual amount of traction in alternative channels. Back then, it was Meta offices, Google offices. We were telling an LP of ours, in a meeting about leisure, and this is in late 24, and we were at a coffee shop in Austin, and a woman walked in holding one. And we were like, where did you get that? And we just finished telling them how popular they were at offices. She's like, my office. I love this stuff. I drink it all the time. And we thought that was really cool and unusual in how they had built the business. Alex mentioned sometimes he's really glad, and I think there's definitely merit to this, that he and Steve came from, I always had a little bit of experience in CPG actually, but they came from sort of outside the industry. And so they were doing things a little differently than I think the playbook or normal advisors would tell you to do it. Alex, correct me if I'm wrong. One of the goals for both of us was to get it into a major national retailer with a large footprint to see how it would do in the deeper waters. And one of the ways that's changed and been exciting now is they got into Whole Foods National. They've done exceptionally well. They've just gotten to HEB. The early numbers are really, really good. Same with Target. And I think now some of the HEB movement may literally be our office. Our office manager just finished telling me that every single day he buys some for our office from an HEB on South Congress Avenue. So they're probably really artificially high numbers. But to watch a goal in 24 become something they've just like checked a box on, this can thrive with not that much promotion and do exceptionally well from a sales velocity perspective in national retail. That's been super cool. The next thing we got to prove, I think, is that scalable, and have we built a playbook of promotion and brand building? And there's way more to it than that. Alex's life is way more complicated than that. But those are two things I would focus on for the business.
Anything to add, Alex?
Yeah, I think it's so hard I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of an investor. It's so hard to know what's going to work because nothing's really a surefire, especially in CPG where one production run could end your career. Olipop is a great example of this, is that no one really believed in that brand until they were doing 20 plus million. And a lot of people were still down on that brand when they were there. And now they're, in 40,000 stores or so and doing over 600 million in revenue. So I think a lot of it has to come down to some early traction pieces. And I think we were focused early on how do we show that the consumer we're trying to win with is adopting leisure. And we had no money or interest in trying to build that immediately in big retailers. So we were trying to put our brand into the hands of our customer where they are at. So we were thinking 20 to 35-year-old creative people is the most likely early adopter of the brand. So we went to the coolest cafes. We went to the tech offices, creative agencies. We even did a collaboration SKU with a sandwich chain in LA. I think they have 7 locations now. They're called Giada, but they're probably the hottest sandwich chain from like a brand perspective in Los Angeles. So their logo on one of our cans, and we have an Arnold Palmer inspired half and half in their locations. And I think how do you win in hydration? I think you win by competing in places that the category doesn't play. So Gatorade would never collaborate with a chicken parm restaurant because that goes against being fit and playing football and dunking a basketball. But for us, we're all about it. So that's a lot of the things that we were trying to build on early. Obviously, it has shifted now with being a retail focused business, and Whole Foods kind of was the first dip into that. And we're using that success to expand beyond.
So well said. And I think such a great highlight of the way you have to think as a founder in the earliest days when your hands are tied behind your back. It's like a chicken and egg capital game. You need to make movement, but you also need to do it in a very thoughtful, strategic, low budget way. That's a really hard puzzle to put together. I think the way that you're thinking about your consumer, not demographics, but psychographics so intimately early on, I'm sure is a big pillar of why you've been so successful, like understanding the customer journey, meeting them where they're at, like you're saying, understanding the difference of your customer base versus other customers that are purchasing different competitive products on the market. I think those are all really thoughtful, high value add ways to be strategic as a founder early on. And I'm sure was noticed by a lot of the people that decided to partner with you. As you think forward into not just this next phase of what your Series A can unlock, but kind of the big vision and future of your brand, where do you see leisure hydration going in its kind of final big life dream? Like, what's the big picture vision?
Yeah, I mean, I think we want to build a modern hydration category. I think this has been dominated by Gatorade and a little bit of Powerade for decades. And you're starting to see the shift, especially in soda and energy and some of these categories that are able to create healthier, more beneficial products that win over the next generation with their branding and their marketing. But I think, how can we bring something that's truly valuable and healthy to the next generation? But I think most of all, something that's fun and tastes good and people actually want to drink and enjoy. We always think of leisure as like a sliver of vacation in your day, like something that's fun. It's a break. Like we like to say, taking a leisure break. We want to become the category leader for the next generation. So I think what you've seen Olipop and Poppy do to Diet Coke, or Celsius and Alani Nu to Red Bull, we would love to do to vitamin water and kind of be the leader in that segment.
Really well said, and big dreams that I am rooting for you all to achieve, as I'm sure Ryan is as well.
Pretty hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Reflecting back throughout this journey, especially the investment portion of it, what lessons learned have you gathered throughout the experience that you think others can learn from? And as you're speaking to other founders in the audience here, what's a few pieces of advice about fundraising or working with investment partners or just the capital journey in general that you think would be really helpful for them to know?
The first things first is you need to know what you're doing. And no one knows what they're doing in terms of it making every right decision. But I think what Ryan was saying of early on, we were having half of our day was talking to people and trying to consume information. And I think if you're new to an industry and you want to succeed, you need to have a insatiable curiosity that you aggressively pursue. And you need to go and gather information, parse through it, learn, get advice. Don't get advice from too many people. And when you do get the advice, don't take it straight up. Take that advice, filter it through the context of your own business, and then make a first principles decision and get better at what you're doing. Because I think like what worked for Olipop or what works for Koya or GT's Kombucha or Celsius is not the same thing for us. It's a different brand, it's a different consumer, and it's a different time. So like the marketing every couple of years changes. So I think that is a super important thing, is just learning as fast as you can. The second thing too, I think, is building a business that fundamentally an investor can see how the foundation will scale. So a margin or cash burn will kill a business. So how do you build a really simple and understandable foundation of this is where the margin is, this is how we're going to get it here. And that's, they can feel more safety in that. And then I think directly for fundraising, you have to build relationships really early. We met Ryan 2 years before they ever wrote a check and 3.5 years before they led our Series A. And a lot of other investors that are on the cap table, we met years ago and followed up every couple months and kind of got them up to speed. I don't want to speak for Ryan, but I think it's helpful for him when we say we're going to do this and then we come back and we said, hey, we did it. And then we do it again and we did it again and we did it again. It definitely eases an investor's mind.
I was about to make a selfish portfolio plug, but it's true. And I think you'll like the comparison is that the other two groups that I feel that come top of mind, that we watched what they did, they said what they were going to do, and then they did it over and over again and just made us feel dumb for not being on the cap table, were Will Hicks at Magic Mind and Ben Whitty at Recess. And I think the Michaelsen brothers are that third group where we just watch them. There's only so long you can sit on the sideline and go, all right, they just keep doing what they say they're going to do. So do we want on board or not? And all three of those founder groups were people we just believed in. And the more we do this, I think 1 year older than Leisure as a fund, we are also very new. I don't have a ton of wisdom to share because I think you should develop more than 5 years usually before you come to a bunch of big conclusions. But what everyone says is true, which is it's all about the people. And do you believe in them? And the pattern that Alex is saying, I think, is one of the strongest patterns that a fund manager can see, or an investor overall. And it's actually an influence to why we're doing a little bit of an unusual thing at Midnight, in that we are stage agnostic. And it's because if you get to know a founder, I don't want to have missed them. I want to be able to right size the checks in the fund to somebody that we just think this person just is not going to lose. they're going to find a way. And I think Steve and Alex fit that bucket.
Very kind and thoughtful words. And I think a really interesting strategic approach to investing as well, allowing yourself to be nimble and to really be focused on finding winners versus just kind of like finding a company that might fit a certain portfolio construction with maybe like percentage less conviction because it's the right stage or profile for what you're focused on. I'd love to kind of like dig in a little deeper here and ask, for both of you, when you're kind of giving updates throughout a period of time, or you're talking to investors and you're getting feedback in a bit of a crass way, they're hanging around the hoop in some way, kind of waiting and watching you. What do you think it was that they needed to see more of to get conviction in your brand? Like, what did you feel like the feedback was early on? And what do you think the tipping point was for people to start getting really excited about wanting to lean in and really commit to the investment?
What Ryan said about our business early, that was a strength, is also a weakness, is that 65% of our revenue through 2024 was in places that gave our product away for free. So like offices and airport lounges, which were really great for getting the brand out there, for driving high margin revenue. And it helped us scale our production so that we could even set up margins so that when we launched nationally, our margins were already in the top tier. Now, when we tried to raise money off of that, we constantly got feedback of, we need to know how this is going to perform in retail. Like, we need revenue that's coming from retailers, that's repeat, that's over time. And it was a challenge to get funds and investors that are knowledgeable of the industry to put in money. So that's why, we were forced to focus more on people outside of the industry, which I do think can be really helpful. Because I think at least us, we like to have our opinions and we like to learn and run on our own. Now, eventually, as it gets bigger, you need to bring more and more people to the table. But I think early on, going 0 to 10 million revenue is honestly a lot more about creativity and art than it is like science. You have to figure out ways to change your brand, change your product, change your strategy. So I think when we were able to finally have conversations with real consumer investors is when our distribution was big enough to where we could show a velocity story in different places. Here's how we're doing on Amazon and how that looks at Whole Foods in comparison to the rest of the category, any other regional places, conventional channels, and then what are the conversations happening with future partners that will grow the revenue. But that was the inflection point. We had maybe raised, Midnight put in their intro check when we were still food service heavy, and then we maybe had one other small fund in. The rest were angels or non-industry people until recently. And that has come just purely from the hard facts of growth, margin, velocity, and a brand that is differentiated in a big category.
That's really helpful color. And thank you for being so transparent about that. I feel like, as every founder knows, like the road is full of rejection. And I think understanding what needs to be kind of the goal or to change or how to improve the business versus just internalizing that rejection is half the battle of getting where you need to go. It's just understanding the pieces that need to be in place for an investment to feel less risky or more compelling. And I think that painted a really clear, beautiful picture. And kudos to you all for the resilience and the tenacity, because that's not easy. And going about things a scrappy way and having to kind of like build up an additional business model while you're trying to get everything going and challenging times without a ton of capital. That is no easy feat. I don't think that's lost on anyone listening. So really, really exceptional job to you all.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's a mental game too when you're not doing the conventional path, because this industry is set up on PR hype, and every day you see a new LinkedIn notification of X, Y, or Z brand launching nationally at XYZ retailer, while you're emailing kitchen managers at LinkedIn trying to get into their refrigerators. A little bit of a different thing, but you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah, it's that moment of like, what am I doing with my life? Why am I totally crazy? Why am I doing this? Ryan, anything to add?
No, I think for us, well, I guess something. At High Desert, we get told no all the time when we're raising money at Midnight. Recently less, but in the beginning, we got told no almost every single time. Raising Fund 1 was brutal. And I think The advice I would give if any investors are listening, and I do an okay job of this, there's a lot that fall through the cracks because email is almost impossible to keep up with at this point. It's really important to try as much as you can to give feedback on why you're not investing in something, because it's the second most valuable thing you can give a brand besides a check, is sort of like, why aren't I writing a check? And should they be considering and changing and thinking about this as they go forward? And the reverse, as a brand, I think when you hear no, I think you should not in too pushy of a way, but kind of hungrily try to gather why that no came through. Because that's like so valuable in terms of information as to what patterns these investors are seeing that you're not matching. And that doesn't mean it's a bad thing. Sometimes it's a good thing. Sometimes you're thinking outside the box, and 65% of your revenue is coming from these unbelievable marketing channels that Alex uncovered, that he was getting paid to hand out free product, that he didn't even have to pay for the infrastructure to hand out. It was one of the greatest, marketing billboards I'd ever seen. Most billboards don't pay you to be on them. So it was really cool to see. I think Alex was right. We and other investors, we still just wrote the check, but I understood a lot of other investors thinking, I need to see if people pay for this first. So, it's definitely an art, as Alex said, not a science early on.
Well said. And I love the way you framed that. Yeah. There's always like doing something different and non-traditional. You're learning a lot and you're showing the path to another way, and others kind of like learn from your playbook as you're building it out. And I think that's part of being an innovator and a creative problem solver.
But there's also the fact that times are always changing. You got me on one of my few soapboxes I really believe in.
Give us the insights.
I'm genuinely annoyed, and I shouldn't be. This isn't my role, but I'm annoyed when founders of a business from 2016 think that somehow, or even now, that their path up the mountain is the only way, and they give advice to brands as if like, you need to do this. My dad helped build the strategy of a very major beverage in the early 2000s. And a lot of people will come to him and say, how do I build the next X, Y, and Z? And he's like, if you have a time machine to the year 2002, I have an unbelievable plan for you. I was like, but if you tried what we did then, it's not going to work now. And so I think brands need to think outside the box the way Leisure did, because what worked 5 years ago, some of the principles are always true, but largely that vein of gold has been mined by now. And you're going to have to get more creative and think of something else to make it going forward.
And if I can add on to that, this industry is very small and it's easy to be influenced by others. And I don't recommend copying other people's strategies because you don't even know if it's working. Like if you haven't seen someone's books and all you've seen is an article on an industry publication and their Instagram, you know zero about their business. The amount of times I've been sent something, whether someone's raising money and I have a deck and I read through the financials, there is a mismatch between what you think a brand is and what their business actually is. So like try to take advice, contextualize it into your business, but ultimately the founders that win figure out how to make their own plan work. And I'm not even saying that ours will work because we're still going along for the ride, but I think that's really important. And I think the industry in some ways is set up to make you feel insecure as a founder and that everyone can sell you the silver bullet. And I can guarantee you that there are zero silver bullets, and thinking that way will lead to your destruction.
So well said. And I think if you look at like the glamorized, really successful founders that have been really innovative and made it to the top of the mountains that they were climbing, I don't think any of them have the story that they were kind of like riffing off of someone else's journey or thinking about it the way another business or founder was necessarily. I think there's some business fundamental similarities or like some case study learning or competitive analysis things that kind of sometimes are in common. But I think the key is going back to the root of your own customer and understanding how to best meet them. And I think if that's always your guiding light of how you're operating a business with your consumer in mind, it's hard to go wrong because that's your job at the end of the day, is to serve your consumer really well and to be focused on them. So well said. And obviously showcases your really thoughtful approach to business and kind of having the ability to take in information and digest it, ask the questions and be curious and learn, but have your blinders on at the same time and know what's going to be right for you all and for what you're trying to achieve as a business and a brand. I'd love to quickly touch on kind of the investor company relationship. Obviously, we've gotten a little bit of a showcase just from this conversation, but would love to ask you both, what's the relationship like, and where do you find the most value in the investor relationship to come from? And if you had any kind of words of wisdom or quick advice to help explain it to another person who's considering getting into a partnership like that, what do you think the things that they need to know are?
I have to imagine that this experience is very different for every fund and brand. Midnight certainly isn't like even if you visit their office in Austin, you're not walking into a finance office. You're walking into a more
We see Ryan's office right now. He's got style.
I think the photo behind him does it justice, but I think for us, part of this was, especially this round, we raised this round when we initiated it. We didn't need money. And part of it was around an inflection point in what the future was looking like. So I'd called Ryan and we had kind of sat down and thought about, should we raise a round collaboratively that is patient and brings on the right partners that can help the business move forward. So a lot of our relationship has been trying to figure out how to get the right people around the table. So I kind of think of our business. We have our core team and employees. We're trying to build out some of the new AI type of stuff that's coming around that Ryan's also a big fan of underneath the business. But I kind of think of us trying to build like an outer shell that is a advisory board per se, that has operational leaders, sales leaders, executive leaders, marketing leaders that can help be advisors to our top team members. And a lot of that was part of this round. Is if you look at the people that got involved, was who can add value, who can help us guide our strategy, who can maybe even get deeper, more involved when we need it. So Midnight played a big role in leveraging their network and helping us set up meetings and warm meetings, and vice versa, of us bringing stuff to the table. So I think that's been a lot of our relationship, is how do we best set up the business. And again, that goes back to the belief that this is a people business. You need good people. Ryan and the team does a good job of not saying this is the way it has to get done or this is what you need to do, but more so thinking of what's happening, where can we take things, how should we go about it, working collaboratively, trying to be flexible and finding the right solutions. And I think you don't want someone that's going to start getting really mad at you when things are going not perfectly. And I think you want going to be a problem solver, because it's going to be up and down. So that would probably be my advice.
I think one of my favorite quotes to like humble myself and our team was, I remember when I was like 24, my dad introduced me to this old Texas billionaire guy who headed up some angel network in Texas. I don't remember his name or the group. It was this old Texas. He had made a ton of money in like energy. And I was, 24. So I'm asking like really open-ended questions. And I said, like, what's the biggest mistake founders make? And what are the best kinds of investors? And I loved his answer. And there are people who disagree, but he was like, I'm like, value add investors are the best kind of investors. And he was like, no, they're number two. He's like, there's only two good kinds of investors. Second best is value add, and the first best shuts the fuck up. He's like, they just put in money and they shut up. He's like, those are the best. You're never going to beat those. Just, they forget they've invested practically. They check in once a year, because those are the best. If you find those, just do those. And if you have to, bring in value add, and everyone else sucks, was his opinion. And I'm not sure I 100% agree, but I always think it sounds fun to think about it that way. I think a big important thing we learned pretty quick was that the value add we thought we could bring at Midnight wasn't sustainable. You can't go grab a sales department and start helping run it. You can, not if you're going to make 25 investments, and not if you're going to spend time finding the best deals. I think you got to find things you can do super easily. And to Alex's point, out for us was network. It takes such a small amount of time to connect the CEO of a major beverage brand with Alex and Steve. We have full faith in them. We're on a lot of calls. We're not on plenty, and they crush it. Those guys get interested, and suddenly we got a killer investor or advisor. And the group that we built together for this round, I'm like super pumped about. There's multiple billion-dollar beverage CEOs, investors, board members of other businesses. And I think we supercharged collectively between Alex, Steve, and Midnight that like phone a friend aspect that leisure can have. And so I think that's really important. And then to what Alex said, I think another thing that's super important is to be in the trenches with the brand. I don't mean be annoying and always be in the business. I mean, things are going wrong for us. How are we going to solve this? Why did we make that mistake? I think is really important instead of putting pressure on a founder. Because if you put pressure on a founder in that aspect in a negative way, they're not going to share negative shit with you that maybe you could fix or help fix or even take some pressure off of them. I think those are all really important things. And it only works if you kind of invest the check knowing like things are going to go wrong all the time here. And we're just trying to help solve it. And something we say really positively about the leisure guys a lot when we talk with our investors, with other brands, whoever, is they keep us in the loop. We have a group text called the Men of Leisure. Well, we need some more women involved. It is men at this point. But it's the Men of Leisure, and it's the 3 Midnight co-founders and the 2 Leisure co-founders. And it's a very active group chat. And that leads to more visibility in the business without some stiff monthly email.
Shared suffering, shared wins, and a shared journey. I think a very thoughtful investor mindset and a productive one to be in. I'd love to pivot now. As you know, Startup CPG has the largest Slack community in the industry with now over 35,000 members. I'd love to pull a question directly from our channel and have you answer it as a case study for any founders with a similar question. Today's question is, what is the sweet spot revenue-wise to fundraise? A lot of investors say show traction, but some also do pre-seed. When is it realistic in reality?
Yesterday. Those are questions that I asked early on, and I think it's well-intentioned, and it can consume your whole life to try and think of when should I do this or do that. And I think with investing or raising money from investors, you have to always be doing it. And that doesn't mean you always have a deck prepared and that you're raising around that has terms, but you're building a network and you're talking to people. Like there's some funds that I think might invest in the future that we have been talking to every single round. And I kind of hold it over their head at this point because it's kind of a joke that the valuation keeps getting higher and they keep missing it. Like early on, like you need money. If you're in beverage, you need $500,000 for the first 18 months. And that's approximate, like to get your branding done, to formula, manufacturing, get things going, have enough money to spend on some marketing to push the ball forward. You need money. So anyone that you can go get checks from is helpful. Don't wait for X, Y, or Z CPG fund to want to put in money. Go get the money from someone else in whatever way you need to. But that's my advice. I think being realistic of when funds that invest in a Series A are going to want to be involved. You probably want to be talking to them at 0 in revenue and 500K in revenue, but they probably aren't going to be that interested until you're a few million in gross revenue. And a few million in gross revenue contributed from a lot of distribution that's doing well. So I'll be completely transparent. When we were talking to the first round of funds in the end of 2024, we had broken 2 million in revenue, but 65% of that was like offices. So it was like, okay, you're doing 2.25 million in revenue, but less than 1 million of that is coming from retailers. So then we flipped that the next year and we went majority retail. That would be my advice, is that you needed money yesterday, especially if you're in beverage, and talk to people that you know aren't the right fit today to build a relationship over time. And always ask for connections and build your network. But yeah, I mean, the goalposts are always moving. I talk to founders that are like, they told me get to 1 million and like it raised. And then now they're saying 2 million. And now they're not investing anything under 3 million. And I think that sometimes investors, from my perspective, say those things to kind of just end a conversation.
Yeah.
No investor is saying, oh, you did 990K, I need it to be 1 million. That's not actually how they're judging the business. If it's a good opportunity with a great team and a lot of momentum, that doesn't matter. It's like, it's the people, it's showing other factors than getting to an exact number.
I'll keep it super short, but I want to double click on one thing Alex said and then one new thing. I don't believe the reason we did recess when they were 65% of our things and things have gone really well since then, the reason we didn't write that check wasn't because we were like super smart. One of the reasons we wrote that check was because we knew them for 2 years. To his point about getting to know, doing the things you say you're going to do, you build trust with someone, even if now's not the time that they could invest. And you build a relationship and they begin to see you as someone they want to invest in or as a winner or whatever. And that can overcome a fund that if we had just met them at that point, then maybe we invest, maybe we don't, because we don't know them that well. Most of the cans have been free. There's a big reason why a smart investor might go, I need to get to know them better, whatever. But we knew them for 2 years. So Alex is dead on that talking to us for that amount of time is the reason we wrote a check, just like Ben Whitty, just like Will Hicks, in our experience. And the second thing that I think is really important for founders to realize is that, and this is just my opinion, pre-revenue is one of the easiest times to raise money, and you should raise as much money as you can early. And I'm not saying dilute yourself some enormous amount. What I'm saying is I see a lot of founders go, I'm going to raise just barely what I need, and I'm going to go out and I'm going to prove it. But guess what? You never prove it the way you thought you would. The experiment almost never goes perfectly right. And if you really need money during one of the times you haven't figured stuff out and the numbers are going down for like 2 months in a row, you're dead. You cannot raise money. You will not. I found that out at High Desert. We've had negative $3,000 on the bank twice during times we didn't have the right trend as we were figuring things out. Now we do. Now the trend is up and to the right. And we figured stuff out because my co-founder is a psycho and he just will not, he's one of those people who will not quit. But to Alex's point, I just see a lot of founders kind of overthink it. We found when you're a PowerPoint slide, it's one of the easier times to raise money. There's no performance that people can hang on your head. And most businesses don't hit the traction in the first year or two. Leisure did. That's really rare. A lot of great businesses don't hit it for a couple of years. They have to figure out and change what the product is, and then they nail it. And great founders could do that. But that's what I would say. I get worried because I see founders go like, I'm not going to raise much money. I'm going to put this in market. Then I'm going to do the laboratory phase and try to raise money while I'm running experiments. And my revenue is going down or up or sideways and the margin's changing. And those are really, really tough times. So it's almost like pre-revenue and 2 years in for most businesses. And that's all real esoteric. And there's massive amounts of exceptions to what I'm talking about. But I know a lot of founders who could have raised more money pre-revenue and wish they did because they needed more runway to figure it out before they went back to market.
The advice is always selling the dream, and you can sell a dream when there's no data. As soon as there's data, you're judged on the data and not the dream. And people that don't know anything about the industry love the dream. They love that vitamin water got bought by Coke for $4.5 billion 20 years ago. And why hasn't that happened again since? Which, you know, you can joke and knowing that's kind of a crazy story, but I think the big picture is what you're selling when there is no picture to sell. And I also do want to relate to founders that it wasn't very easy for us and we didn't immediately catch traction. We changed the branding. We updated our formula 7 times in the first 2 years. We're still changing the formula. We're still changing the branding. My co-founder's in Seattle right now because we launched a rebrand and we're not fully satisfied with the colors. So we're like at a plant for fixing the colors. Nothing's ever perfect. And I think you have to raise money to be able to have time to get through that. Because I'll tell you, when we met Ryan, our biggest revenue month was $10,000 at the time. I remember hitting $10,000 in revenue and like high-fiving, thinking that was the coolest thing I'd ever seen. Like it is an accomplishment in the beginning. Like you got to over $100,000 run rate, but it takes time. You need to figure your stuff out.
So well said and really honest and candid, both of you. This has been such a great chat. I could clearly be talking to you guys all day long. I love the honesty. I love how real you guys are and how helpful you just genuinely want to be to those listening. For any founders that want to get in touch with you, continue the conversation, or follow along on your journey, what's the best way for them to reach you And second part of my question, do you have any advice or are there any current opportunities for those interested in joining your teams or your industry in general?
You can message me on LinkedIn. It's just my name. We are going to start hiring soon on the sales and marketing team. So if anyone has director level sales experience, feel free to reach out to me.
For me, I'm trying a controversial new thing. Look on my LinkedIn, see if you have a warm intro to me. Use a warm intro. If you don't have one, find one. I would say don't reach out cold. I'm not going to see it. I just do not have time to do that. So if you can find a warm intro, find it. Otherwise, network your way around to figure that out. We are not hiring right now. At midnight, we are adjusting to see how many jobs Claude can do. We just made a hire. Her name's Kate Davis. She's wonderful, and she does the jobs of like 3 people. But so between Claude and Kate, we always joke we got like 10 employees now from 0 like 4 months ago. So we're good currently. We will be hiring in the future, and we'll do something then. But in order to get an venture capital, I tell everyone just start doing it. Either writing tiny angel checks yourself. I wasn't in a position to be able to do that. So that's easier said than done. But me and my 2 co-founders just started a fund, which was insane in its own right. But just start doing it, figure out a way to, work for free at a fund if you're a young person trying to get in a venture. And then finally, I would say if you're trying to get in a venture, one of my favorite paths that nobody likes, I'm not saying do what Alex and Steve do, but be on the operating side. That's always super valuable. Like know how to run one of these businesses. Even working at one of these businesses, go learn how the sausage gets made. And I think you'll be a lot more valuable than you think in terms of getting in on the fund side of things.
Yes, a lot of portfolio companies out there. So be strategic and select a good one. And maybe you'll even get a chance to meet someone in the boardroom at some point. Well, both of you, thank you so much, Ryan and Alex. A huge, huge pleasure chatting with you all today. Can't thank you enough. And everyone listening, make sure you check out Leisure Hydration. Go get yourself a can. Do yourself a favor. It's awesome. And you definitely want to try it if you haven't already. And if you're already a customer, then you made the right choice. Thanks so much again to both of you. Well, friends, we've now arrived together at the end of another episode of the Startup CPG podcast, the top globally ranked podcast in CPG. And if you love this podcast, you'll love our Slack community even more. Here at Startup CPG, we're a community of brands and experts, and you should join. Sign up at startupcpg.com. You'll then get an invite to our online Slack community of over 35,000 all-star CPG members, hear about amazing events near you, and all our special opportunities to get you in front of buyers, investors, brands, and more. It's a free community, so what are you waiting for? I'll catch you on the next episode, and I'll see you on the Slack.